If you've ever wished that you could clone yourself to get more done, then the next 8 minutes is going to revolutionize your business. Zapier is a platform that allows you to connect numerous different softwares together to perform certain tasks, which essentially means that you can cut your task list in half thanks to Zapier. If you're like any other business owner, then you probably spend a lot of your time flicking between certain tasks, and with that, flicking between certain softwares. So instead of trying to cover everything, I'm going to focus on the payment side of things and how we can set up systems to ensure that you never miss out on payments again. In addition to this, it will allow you to pivot yourself out of being so involved in the business side of things and having an oversight on things instead. This means that you can pivot your time into high leverage money now tasks that are going to move your business forwards. And as a bonus, I'm going to walk you through the client reactivation system. This system is used inside our business and amongst the 450 plus different businesses that we work with. This will ensure that no matter if a client leaves, they are constantly being reactivated and re-signed into your business. This is essentially a low-hanging fruit in your business without you having to spend more money, time, and energy trying to sign more clients. We can reactivate previous clients.
Zapier is an insanely powerful tool that essentially allows us to combine certain softwares to perform certain actions. So inside Zapier, we can create what are called zaps, which are essentially automations. Automations that perform certain things if certain conditions are met. Now, a big thing to remember with Zapier is essentially a software where you say, if this happens, do this. If that happens, do that. So we can essentially add what is called a trigger. This is essentially what triggers the automation. So things to think about here are, as we're basing this on payments, when payments are bouncing, when payments are cancelling, when subscriptions are set up. All of these things we can put as triggers. So as a trigger, we can click in and we can essentially go for a strike. And a few things to really think about with this one is we want to essentially pivot you out of following up with past clients, following up with current clients' payments who've failed, and then also keeping on top of all of the payments coming into your business. We then essentially by that mean is we can have all these notifications going into certain channels in Slack, so that then your team can handle this. For example, new clients payments. If you have a closer eventually as you scale your business, this then means a notification can go into a certain channel so that this can then transfer across into the staff member of the team that handle the client delivery. This then means that process is frictionless, there's less operational drag, and there's no internal communication needed apart from certain automated notifications that happen regardless of the time of day. Otherwise, if it's all manual, you might find that a closer works at a certain time, but a client fulfillment member works at another time. And then if one of them's off and a client pays, there's this big delay. And especially if you're signing clients into high price point products, we want things to run frictionless and we want people to be notified instantly. So what we can then do is Stripe. We can add this. The first thing for us to really think about with this is setting up a notification when payments fail. So in here, we can click a trigger and we can choose failed payments. From here on the right-hand side, we can then essentially select an account. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause this and select my account, but you would be prompted to log in to your Stripe account, and this will then essentially connect this to Zapier for you. Now, once you've done that, you'll then be able to click test and it will pull through a series of test subscriptions like this. What we can then do is we can put a filter in place to essentially filter when a certain amount is failed. For example, you might know that you sell a subscription for £200 a month. When £200 a month is a failed subscription, we want this notification to happen. We don't want this notification to happen when clients initially sign up, so we just want to set this with recurring products or sort of products that clients are using on an ongoing basis. If you're selling something on an initial sales call, there's no point having a failed payment notification. So what we can do is we can click here and we can then essentially select a path. A path is essentially, it splits off with different outcomes. So for example, if the price is this, do this. If the price is this, if the price is this, and then we can have certain things that happen off the back of this. So as an example, we can duplicate this out. And then what we can then do is we can then say that when this price, so let's just say this is £50. Let's then say this is £100. Let's then say this is £1,000. What we can then do is we can put conditions in place. We can click here and we can then choose text contains 50. We can click here and we can then choose text contains 100. We can then click here and we can choose text contains 1,000. What this then means is we can then put a filter in place so that if a failed payment comes in, it matches one of these failed payment amounts, it then continues on if it fits those conditions. What you'll then notice, you can click where it says choose field. I'm not going to do that because it will pull through a test failed payment from Stripe. It will pull through the most recent failed payment, be that a test or a current client, and obviously that's confidential. But when you click that, you'll have a series of things that you can select, one of which is amount formatted. Then what this means is it means that when the automation happens, it will come in, it will go, right, is the amount that failed £50, £100 or £1,000? If it's one of these, then it would just go down there. If it's not one of them, then it will just stop. Then what we can do is we can add a follow-up. So we could then essentially, we could go Gmail if we want to go with an email, or if you're using our platform systemized to scale, you could then use Lead Connector. And then what you can do is in Lead Connector, we can then essentially choose to update a contact. If you add or update a contact, what this then means is we can update them with a tag. That tag can then trigger an automation inside our platform, which will then essentially trigger off and it can send out a WhatsApp message. Then it means that all you're having to do is just continue that WhatsApp off the back of that, and WhatsApp gets a great response, so chances are that will handle that failed payment for you. What we can then also do is we can continue this process, but we can do a cancel subscription. So what we can then do is we can do cancel subscription. And again, you press continue and test it. So I'm just going to pause that and do that. And then you'll see once you pull through a test, it will pull through a recent cancel subscription. We can then follow the same principle of going with our certain prices, but you'll now notice that you'll just need to change this amount that we put here before. And in this case, you would choose items plan amount formatted. So this then essentially means when a subscription cancels, if the amount is 1,000, 100 or 50, just like with the failed payment, it will split accordingly. We can then, if you wanted, you could put a delay step to essentially delay for a period of time. Or what I would suggest doing is just not having a delay step, simply connecting it into Lead Connector, our platform, and we can put a wait step in there, and that can then trigger out a WhatsApp after, say, 60 days. This can then restart the conversation and steer it back into a sale. Alternatively, you could use something like Active Campaign to send out an email too. That can be really simple for allowing you to reactivate past clients. But alongside this, what works really well is as the trigger, putting new payment. So essentially, when there's a new payment, this triggers every time there's a new payment in Stripe. So what I'm going to do is just continue and test and pull through a test subscription as well. So just like before, we pulled through a series of tests, and this then means that we can set up the automation. Now, what we then want to do is we can set up certain channels in Slack. If you're not using Slack, Slack is an incredible platform for essentially internal communication. You can then have certain channels in Slack that certain team members can be a part of. These team members could be in a channel for, say, Instagram setters, for, say, sales team, for client success. You can have all these different channels. I'll try not to have a ridiculous amount, try and keep it as streamlined as possible. But then these certain channels, you could set one up, which is for, from our perspective, we have a series of different products that we sell, and we have a channel for each product that is just literally the only thing in there. There's no staff communication. It's just linked into Stripe. Stripe then automatically posts in there when there's a certain payment for one of those products. It allows me to have an oversight as to the money that's coming in and keep my essentially finger on the pulse and know what's going on in the business. So then we essentially have these filters set up. So in this trigger, we'd change this here. And in this case, we'd put amount received formatted, and then we'd know that, right, if it's 1,000, it's this product. And instead of using Lead Connector, we would then essentially use Slack. This would then essentially go into Slack, and what we can then do is we can then select to post into a private channel. And then this means that if a payment comes in for a certain amount, which is a certain product, it posts into that channel. The same if it's a certain amount for another product, that channel, and etc., etc. It then means that I have a complete overview as to what payments are coming in. I can add certain staff members into those channels if they're managing that product. They can then see payments coming through. And then also we can have all the subscriptions being reactivated from past clients to re-sign them back in. And then we can have follow-ups out to clients if payments fail. So essentially it's completely hands-off. It then means that the whole payment side automatically runs, past clients are getting re-followed up, and we have this infinite cycle where we know that if we put more money in, we get more leads in, but if they leave, we then have systems to follow back up with them. And it then makes the whole internal operations run a lot smoother, which means retention is higher because program delivery is a lot smoother for the members that are inside.